Welcome to another episode of the Woman Up podcast, a place where we entertain, educate, and elevate women on this journey we call life. And on this episode, I have the amazing Ella Weinberg with me, financial expert, and we are going to talk all about money today.
Okay, cool.
Hi, Ella. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm really excited to have you.
Me too. I'm happy to be here.
You're my first finance person.
Okay, brilliant. Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. What we're going to do first, though, is we're going to start with this game that I made up. It's called 333.
Okay.
So it's just 3 sets of 3 questions.
Right.
Would you rather finish the sentence and then just 3 random questions?
Okay, got you.
Okay, so the first one is, would you rather sleep in or get up early?
Get up early.
I knew you were going to say that. Shave all your hair or lose all your teeth?
Shave all of my hair. Yeah.
Be able to turn invisible or fly?
Turn invisible.
Why?
Just because, then, moments when you don't want to be seen, you do you know what I mean? You don't need to be. I'm just fly in. What am I going to do with that? I can already get to another country, whereas not being seen. There's rooms that, think about it, rooms that you want to be in that you can't be in. Just sneak in, take some notes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like the way you think. Okay, this interview is going to be...
fantastic.
At night, I hate to...
be too hot where I can't sleep.
Yeah, I hate that.
Yeah.
But I also don't like being really cold.
No. But apparently you have a better night's sleep when you go into a cold bed.
Yeah.
And the room temperature is not too hot. I find I toss and turn when
it's too hot.
When it's too hot. Don't get me wrong, when I get in the room, I'm like, that's it, heating on, electric blanket, duvet, everything. And then 5 minutes later, I'm like, oh, I'm dying now.
Where was I? Oh, yeah. One day I am going to...
One day I am going to have travelled to every country.
I love that.
Yeah.
Have you already started, I guess?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I love to travel. That's my downtime.
Yeah. Same. Okay, random questions is, what is your phone wallpaper at the moment?
My son and I.
Oh,
yeah.
He just turned 5, right?
He just turned 5 on Tuesday.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How was his birthday?
It was good, yeah. He had a great day at school and told everyone that is his birthday. Wanted to wear the badge all week. Bless him. And then we took him to the Bloom exhibition, which was brilliant. It's like a full-on exhibition, so it's not quite like how it looks on Instagram, but he was entertained. Every room was something different, so he had the best time.
Amazing.
Yeah, good day.
Love that. Do you have a nickname?
Not really. Everyone who's kind of close to me kind of shortens my name, so it's more like L's. That's about it, really.
Yeah. Okay. And then I asked this to everyone lately, is what 3 things do you love about yourself?
My ambition, my passion, and my role as a mother.
I love that. Amazing. So that's it for our icebreakers.
Cool.
To start off with, thank you. Just let us know who you are, what you do, if this is the first time that someone's come across you.
Okay, so I am a financial expert specializing in protecting people's wealth. So essentially insurance, credit scores, estate planning. So anyone who has a plan to, build income and leave it behind, or build net worth, let's say, just making sure that it's protected. I've been doing that for the last 4 years. And then aside from that, I'm really passionate about female financial independence. So I also then do workshops and public speaking.
Yeah. One thing I was going to ask you is when I think of a financial expert or a financial planner, I always think that's what rich people do.
100%.
So what does everyone else do?
So this is the thing, and this is where I'm positioning myself and trying to disrupt the market, because you're completely correct. When anyone thinks of needing a financial advisor, they think, I've got to have money in the bank in order to be able to have a financial... Otherwise, what are they going to advise me on? And then the other side to that is financial coaches, which have become a new thing and developed a lot more, I would say, sort of in the last 5 years. I would probably say more developed as a result of people getting more information from social media. The problem with financial advisors is, like I said, is the stereotype. And I would say, not that it's a problem, but the issue that I probably have with financial coaches is that they're limited to what they can do for you. So they can encourage, and they can break down maybe some barriers that you're having within your finances at the moment. But if you need, insurance, they're not regulated. They're not in a position to go and do that for you.
Yeah.
If you need support with putting in place a pension, they're not regulated. They can't do that for you. So they're limited to what they can do. So where I sit is in the middle, is saying to my clients, I've been you. I've rented, I've owned my home, I've been a mother, I've obviously not been a mother, I've worked, I'm self-employed, I've grown a business, I've struggled with my business. Like, there's nothing that you're going to come to me and tell me that I haven't been through. And so therefore I'm in a position to advise them no matter what, or at least be able to refer them to someone who can then implement that bit of advice that they need, whether it's regulated or not. So yeah, disrupting that barrier that financial advisors, it's a stereotype. There's definitely more men. And of course, the problem is as women, we don't, or we haven't valued over the years our finances as much as men. They earn more, they achieve more financially. So yeah, it's a very common assumption that when it comes to financial advisors, I got to be rich. The reality is you don't, but it's just breaking down that stereotype so people feel more inclined to either, if not get a financial advisor, to still get that person that can implement the specific help that they need.
Why then earlier you said you work with women, or you value like financial independence for women.
Yeah.
Why specifically for women?
Just because we're at such a disadvantage. Gender pay gap, pension gap, life insurance gap.
What's the pension gap?
So the pension gap is that when it comes to retirement, the pension pot for men is at a far bigger value than when it comes to women.
Oh, right.
Pay gap is literally like for every 80 something pence that a woman earns, a guy earns a pound.
Yeah.
And then there's even a life insurance gap. So what that is that basically for the amount of men that actually take out life insurance, I can't always remember what the stats are, but it's like 55% of men will take out life insurance compared to maybe like 37% of women.
Wow.
So bottom line is, from the minute women wake up, we're just financially at a disadvantage. And when you then put that into the context of life, so when you think of things like raising children, bottom line is we have to take a hit when it comes to pay because of maternity leave. If we think of relationships, and again, the stereotype that the man is the provider just for the simple fact that he earns more. If you now need to get out of a relationship, what does that look like for you financially?
Yeah.
So it's just women being equipped. It's not saying that every woman has to enter into a relationship or go through life trying to be as independent as possible. It's just being equipped with the tools that they can be if they need to be.
So a woman that is in a relationship, let's say she's living with someone, but
Yeah.
she doesn't have any kids
Yeah.
with that person, what would be your advice? Like, I've just moved in with someone. How do we handle the finances?
I think it's appreciating. I think it's really important for everyone to have money of their own. Just because at the end of the day, yes, you may be a couple and you may be building a life together, but there are things that tick your boxes differently. You know, what self-care looks to your partner can look different to you. And, if you need to let off steam because you've earned X amount of money and you just want to go on a shopping spree, no matter how big or how small, yes, you may have a really understanding partner, but whose money are you spending and things like that. And also when it comes down to financial responsibility, taking out things that require finance. At the time, it can be sensible to say, well, you're the one with the better credit, you'll get the better interest rate, let's put it in your name. But then moving forward, no one has a crystal ball in terms of how long the relationship is going to last or just how things are going to be impacted. You might have put something in someone's credit this year because it made sense, but actually now that person's got so many things in their name from a credit perspective that in 3 years' time when you want to do more, that person's overloaded. So I think it's just being really, really clear about things that are personal and things that are joint. Yes, you are building a life together. That's the whole reason why you've moved in together. So household things, etc. Just like I said, just being really, really clear on what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, and what's ours is ours. And being fair to each other that I'm allowing you to still have yours the same way I still want to have mine. And there's no issues with that. So just as much transparency and clarity on your financial circumstances, I would say, as possible. Emergency funds. Income protection. You've also, as much as you're building a life together and you want to have some element of independence, you also have to think of the impact that it now has on the other person if something was to happen. If I'm no longer working, we're maintaining a household together, and if I'm no longer working, how does that impact my partner? Do I have enough savings in the bank, to cover my work or to cover my pay or to cover my income? Or if he gets sick, am I going to be able to support him? So it's things like that. As much as you're building together and you want to maintain a level of separation, it's also what's going to be the impact on each other. So just kind of ironing out all of those things that I think really need to be considered when, sort of merging those finances together.
Yeah. I know you talk a lot on your Instagram about money management and emergency fund and all that. So I want to get into that, but
Cool.
Let's just go back to basics.
Yeah.
I know you are you always talk about your credit score as well. And I think a lot of people just overlook the credit score. So let's just go, what is a credit score?
Think of it as like a financial CV on literally all of the information about how you manage your finances. So bank accounts, credit related. So for example, whether it's loans or car finance, overdrafts, credit cards. So anything where you've borrowed money or have access to money from someone else, or anything where it may be a credit agreement. So they've given you something and you're now paying it back over a period of time. All of that information, where you live, how long you've lived there for, how long you've had the credit agreement, is all documented in this thing called a credit report. It's rated, which is where your credit score comes from. I always try and tell people it's credit conduct more than credit score.
Okay.
Because a credit score is a universal rating, which means that the way that they rate your credit score and the way that they will rate my credit score is the same. That doesn't take into consideration, however, personal circumstances. So you might have, for example, 5 properties, 5 mortgages, 2 credit cards and whatever, and manage all of that really well. And I might have no debt whatsoever, and yet you can have a better credit score than I am, just because they're like, well, this person's got no debt, so we've got no information to we've got no information to rate. When the logic would be, but if she's got 5 mortgages, she owes like how much money to other people, surely her credit report or credit score would be lower.
Should be lower, yeah.
But essentially it's just financial management. It shouldn't be overlooked because they're utilizing your credit score now more than ever. Like I said, it's literally like your financial CV. So if you go to rent, copy of your credit report.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
So they'll use a copy of your credit report. There's certain jobs now they'll want a copy of your credit report.
Wow.
Certainly within my industry, I can't move or go anywhere without having to send over a copy of my credit report. Like I said, any activity, even if it's just opening up a bank account, it's going to show on that credit report. So it is really important. Whilst it may not seem as significant to you today, the information stays on there for a significant amount of time. 6 years from the minute you open an account, well, if it remains open, then it's on there for as long as it's open. But if any financial activity, bottom line is from the point that you close it, still remains on there for 6 years. So that's what I'm saying. Something that might not be important today, in 5 years' time, something might be important where you're going to need to utilize your credit score. And if you haven't taken it seriously, then past mistakes are going to impact you and sort of put you in a position that's going to be difficult 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years' time. So yeah, for me, it's something that people really shouldn't overlook, but it's easily done because no one's thinking, oh, I'm going to go and open a bank account tomorrow. Let me check my credit report first. And you're thinking, no, it's a bank account. Let me just go and open it. Or, I'm thinking I need another credit card, or actually I need a new iPhone. Why don't I just get it on finance? All of these things play a part.
Yeah.
Massive part.
I mean, you can get anything on finance these days.
Yeah.
Like anything and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if someone was like, I don't have a clue about my credit score.
Yeah.
I'm in debt, Ella. What do I do?
So first place that I would say you need to check is a platform called Check My File.
Okay.
And that is because there's 3 credit referencing agencies in the UK. Equifax, Experian and TransUnion, but they all rate you slightly differently. And the information that they hold can vary from credit reference agency. So therefore you want to go to Check My File because they have all the information on all 3. At least that way you're not missing something. Because you can literally, like I said, car finance can show up with Experian and Equifax, but might not show up with TransUnion. So if you want to get a fair picture, you need all of the facts. So that's the first thing. Second thing is just ignore the score.
Okay.
Because that's 9 times out of 10 people look at that and they're like, oh, I'm trying to get this
Scary.
999 score and I'm like at 300 or 400 and that means that my score is very bad. Just ignore that for like, just park it for a second. And then the next thing is just making sure that the information in your credit report is all correct.
Okay.
That's the first port of call, because if the information's all correct, then you can deal with the issues if you've got bad credit. If the information is incorrect, then that's the first thing that you want to rectify, because of course that's having an impact on your report. But in fairness, it actually isn't your fault. So that's why I always say to anyone who's checking their credit report for the first time, and once you've done it once, you don't really need to do it again.
Okay.
Start there. And then I offer a service with clients, which is like a credit score review, a credit report review, where I literally break down their report to them. This is what's impacting you. This is what you're doing. And I take into consideration their circumstances, how they're managing their money. And I'm like, you got a you got a credit card, but at the moment you're relying on your credit card.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do to manage it in the best way, etc. So until you can understand what's contained in your credit report, that's always going to be the first place.
Yeah. And then in terms of money management, like what advice do you give to people when you look at their income and then you look at their outgoings?
Yeah.
How do people start with like managing their money?
First place that I like to start with clients is ascertaining what's important to them and what they want to work towards. Because money comes and goes, like it ebbs and flows. Bottom line is you get paid every month, even if you're not working, and it's, support or benefits or whatever. It's just understanding what you're working towards, because then you've got something tangible. The reality is, if you've got nothing to work towards, you can coast month to month. And I think that's why so many of us, when we're young, make so many financial bad decisions, because we're not really working towards anything. The biggest financial goal we've got is just earning money.
Yeah.
So the minute we achieve that, we're spending it, because we know in 28 days time we're going to get paid
It again. Yeah.
So the first thing is understanding what's important. For some people it might be moving out, it might be buying a home, it might be increasing their salary, it might just be self-care, like living life on their terms, being able to afford a massage once a month, or being able to afford going to the gym or a holiday, whatever it is. So if we've got that, then we've got something to work towards. Then it's being able to compare their current financial habits to that financial goal. So for example, you've got X amount of expenses coming out of your bank account every month, and I get them to categorize those expenses. So, okay, you're eating out. Is eating out important to you? If it is, fantastic. Let's put this as one of your pockets, one of your pots in terms of where your expenditure goes. And then let's look at how much you're utilizing of your income towards that particular thing. Because then what people are able to do is, say you're on a 30k salary, you're bringing in around about 2k a month, and you're spending £500 on eating out. Then they're in a position to be like, oh, okay, a quarter of my salary is going on just eating out. I thought this was really important to me. It's not that important. Let me cut back. So it's really important to get perspective. But I think, starting with that goal first. Otherwise, like I said, you're just going to continue coasting month to month. And the figures have to make you uncomfortable.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? In order for you to want to make those changes. So definitely reviewing your bank account is like, say, the next step. But the next step in line with those financial goals. Because there's rules out there, the 50, 30, 20% rule.
Yeah, what is that? Because I saw a post you did about that, but I was like, I don't know what that is.
So basically, it's almost like a way to sort of categorize your expenditure and to break it up, almost like a rule of thumb. And as a starting place, brilliant, I've got no concerns with it. But some people, of course, when they digest financial information, can think that it's rigid and that's how it's supposed to be. 50% of your income is supposed to go on your needs. So that is like the roof over your head, gas, electricity, food. 30% of your income is then supposed to go towards, discretionary expenditure. And then 20% is then to go towards savings or debt, let's say.
Okay.
But my thing is, that doesn't take into consideration people's lifestyle. If you've got a mother, for example, or a parent, the reality is in this current climate, more than 50% of their income is going to be going on what they need.
Yeah.
So for someone hearing that, trying to get a grip of their finances, that can immediately fill them with anxiety, thinking, oh my gosh, I'm spending 65%. How can I cut back when there's nowhere for me to cut back?
Yeah.
I can't spend any less on gas and electricity. I can't spend any less on my rent. The fact is the numbers don't lie. So that's why I say it's a great tool when people are first looking at their finances, to maybe use it as an assessment tool. Okay, 50% is a good place. Where am I at? 20% is a good place. Where am I at? But after you've got that reality check, scrap it. Scrap it. Because, if someone's trying to work towards their financial goals, 20% is not enough. You're not going to tell me that every month I should be putting aside just 20% if I'm saying that I'm go hard or go home to go and buy this thing at the end of 12 months. You're going to be putting aside more than that. And the same with your wants and your needs. If your wants give you quality of life and you're still saving a little bit, or you've got your emergency fund built up, or you've got the right insurances in place, and your wants are now more than 30%, they're closer to 45. Okay, who am I to tell you any different? Do you know what I mean? So that's why I say it's a good rule to assess, not to always implement.
Okay. Hey ladies, thanks for joining us here on another episode of the Woman Up podcast. We absolutely love your support. And I just want to take a moment to say, please subscribe wherever it is that you're watching from, whether it's Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, it really doesn't matter where. It just really helps us grow and keeps the podcast going. If you're feeling especially inspired, please leave us a comment with feedback or even topic suggestions. It really means the world to us, and I personally read everything. So thanks in advance. We appreciate you, and let's get back to the episode. Okay.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about debt? Because I know that there's like a lot of people saying there's good debt and there's bad debt. Do you agree with that? Or?
I do. So for me, bad debt is anything that you can't pay back. And a good example that a lot of people are kind of talking about at the moment is, like, say, Klarna.
Okay.
So the use of Klarna and the reason...
Sorry, just for anyone who doesn't know, what is Klarna?
Klarna is a platform that allows people to basically purchase things and then pay at a later date. So they can either pay in 3 installments, or they can then pay in 30 days.
Yeah.
But essentially you've been able to buy that item, get it immediately, and finance it later. The issue that people are having with Klarna is that there is no financial regulation, so that people's finances are not taken into consideration, meaning that you can have 0 in the bank.
Wow.
Literally go and buy something on Klarna that might cost, say, £500, and no one knows where the £500 is coming from in 30 days' time. So I think it was last year, the FCA managed to get Klarna to appear on people's credit reports.
Okay.
Meaning that if they haven't paid back on Klarna, it will now impact their credit report, and it will show up as well as like either a payment that they've made or a missed payment if they haven't. But again, that financial assessment still isn't there. But Klarna is a good example. Like I said, if you have paid for something, or if you've bought something today and you have no idea how you're going to fund it in 30 days time, that's bad debt. That is bad debt.
Yeah.
A property, however, and again, people can be in two minds when it comes to mortgages because it's such a large amount of debt. For me personally, isn't bad debt, because if we just look at the property market traditionally and historically over a 20-year period, property prices increase, which means that, yes, you may have taken on a large amount of debt to buy your home, but chances are that if you maintain that property, you're going to be left with equity, which then means you've made money on your money. So that's leveraging debt to be able to get more money. So that's the difference between good debt and bad debt. For me, bad debt is anything that you can't pay back.
Yeah. I mean, I can tell you about my situation.
Yeah.
I bought a house like 7 years ago.
Cool.
But I didn't have a deposit. So I used a credit card for the deposit.
Cool.
And I was like obsessed with like property mentors and everything at the time. And I was like, it'll be fine because the house will bring in money. I'm going to rent it out. I'm not going to live there. And then it'll pay my credit card and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then it just became like a really big headache for me.
Yeah.
Because everyone was like, oh, it doesn't matter. Once the interest free runs out, you just refinance and blah, blah, blah. But what happened is my credit score took such a hit, then I couldn't refinance. And then I was having to pay this massive amount from like my own money because the rent was just covering the mortgage and there was nothing extra for me. So I do agree with what you're saying, but I think it's really important to do the numbers.
100%.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like whatever's on your credit score it's on my credit score. It's not on the house's credit score.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's like it's not like separate from you. Like this is that's what I mean. It's like your financial CV. This is about you. So yeah, you're completely right. It's so important to do those numbers, and you just gave like a really good example of why your credit score is so important. And again, just people can fall into this trap of thinking it adds up, it makes sense, and etc. It doesn't, because life gets in the way. Do you know what I mean? We're not in control of the economy. You know, your credit score took a hit. What happened to the interest rate? The interest rate then meant what happened to your finances. It's literally a domino effect. But then this is part of the problem. People learn through consequence as opposed to learning through the education. And this is what, like, as society, as communities, as different cultures, we need to do more of. People need to learn, period. Like, no more consequences. Because the impact is just too great. Like, no more consequences. But yeah, people really need to calculate those numbers. But the problem is you don't know what you don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there's a lot, this is the problem with social media, why I say with the rise of, like, say, coaches and things like that, is we're in an age now where it's easier to make money than ever before. And we're in a society or in an age where people are in a position to show up as well with an authoritative voice and preach, and people digest that information. Our attention spans are shot. Like, we're not listening to anything beyond, like, 7 seconds if it's on social media. You know, people aren't reading as much. So we're just absorbing all of this information and thinking that it's possible because someone has shown us a highlight reel and we're like, oh, okay, let's do that. And the long-term reality is it's not always like that.
I know,
it's literally not always like
I was
that.
literally like, this is my first step. I'm going to be like a property mogul. And
a property developer, 10, 20 properties, just and that's the problem though. It's just not that straight. It's not that straightforward.
But then where do we actually get information that's helpful but also realistic? Because I think if you look at, like, well, my education specifically, no one at school taught us about finances.
No.
So there's either zero information in, like, the school system, or there's what you say, you become an adult and then you learn from consequences. Or it's like my parents who are just like, no debt, no credit cards, money is bad. And like, just, I don't even know, like, where to get legit financial information from.
I think there's platforms. I think it's about finding an individual or individuals. You got to shop around. So there's platforms now that are kind of developing more than ever. Investment platforms like gosh, I'm trying to think of a few, but
I just joined Female Invest.
Okay, so Female Invest, I'm an affiliate with. I work with Female Invest to refer clients who want to invest. So they're a good one, for example. Any other investment platform, to be fair, Hargreaves Lansdown. Money Saving Expert is a great platform to just kind of break down the terminology and where you can find, like, accurate information. Juno, there's a platform run by 2 women called Juno. I helped did some content with them, and they're kind of like the Duolingo of money. So they break down all of the different terminologies and different things like that. But if I'm being totally honest, you got to shop around. It definitely starts from within. So whether that's your household, your friendship circle, people at work. Because, again, you don't know what you don't know, but you need to know what's relevant to your lifestyle, your circumstance. But the problem is a lot of the time we get so, oh, my gosh, they're earning that much. And that probably means that they're, you know, they've got loads of money and they're really responsible and I'm really bad with money. Absolutely. Am I not going to have a conversation with them? No. Have a conversation if you can. Find that person to have a conversation with. So yeah, so just shop around as much as you can, find the person that you feel comfortable with. And I think what's really important when it comes to financial coaches, advisors, anyone who's regulated in the financial space is that they get you, that you feel comfortable with them, that you trust them. Back in the day, you know, everyone used to have, or like our parents' time and stuff like that, they used to have financial advisors that they would remain in the family for years.
Yeah.
And I think the way we're living, that's maybe not as necessary. But the reason that came about was because they trusted that individual and that person felt like, you know, part of the family. They had their one financial advisor, their one bank manager, their milkman down the road.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like I said, it's less necessary now because of the way we live life, but it's still necessary just on a shorter space of time. So just find that person that when you have a conversation with them, they're like, yeah, that person gets it. I can trust that person. They get my circumstances. They're speaking the same language.
Yeah.
If they're not, forget it, because it's just not going to work.
Yeah. I do think there's a certain level of shame with like having debt as well, especially as a woman. I'm finding that like I felt really uncomfortable for a long time, even talking about the fact that I had debt.
Yeah.
And even now, like I'm 38
Yeah.
and
yeah.
I've only this year started to like, I have like a spreadsheet now and every single penny that goes in and out of my account is accounted for. But it's taken me a long time to get
there, yeah. To feel comfortable with even looking at those numbers.
Yeah. And I was just like, if I don't do this, I'm never going to pay this debt off. And so it's like a conscious effort. But I think it's really easy to like get into debt or to, you know, be relying on credit cards for just simple things like bills.
Yeah.
And not have like anywhere to like, you know, I don't know what the word is, but to like share the burden.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right there. I think even the way in which, you know, how brands market to us as women, they play on the fact that women are supposed to be the ones who spend and the ones who go on shopping sprees and things like that. You know, we're literally, the fact that Klarna's branding is pink, it's supposed to appeal more to women, you know. So you're absolutely right. There's definitely a shame. And I think all of those things that women have to face, being at a disadvantage financially, then when you're a woman and you're in debt, it's almost like, ooh, I told you so. You know, women aren't good with money and men are better. And it's not the case. And the times are definitely changing. Like women are becoming more household breadwinners now, more than ever before. Wealth is in the hands of women more than ever before. We're contributing to the, you know, the economic climate more than ever before. So times are definitely changing. But all of that can be happening and it doesn't change how you feel within. So I think it's about making that first step. Again, with specialists, you know, if someone says that they are a money mindset coach, that's the person that you want to speak to, because theoretically that's the person you're not supposed to feel shame with. And that could just be your first step. And I'm one of those people, take advantage of as many of us in the industry offer like a free discovery call to get a bit of information about you. Take advantage of as many of those as possible. Even if it's just to give you clarity. Watch YouTube as much as you can. Use those financial calculators as much as you can, just so then you can start to get a grips with things and then hopefully make that first step. Because it's scary when it comes to money.
I think so.
And people say, oh, you know, money doesn't matter and it's not a big, hello, everything we do involves money. And now it's all so automated and done so quickly that we just don't even think about it. You know, you get on the tube, you tap your phone. You know, you pay for something, you tap this. And we don't even have to, you know, type the PIN and stuff anymore. You know, if you go to rent or anything that you need to do financially, you don't even have to send them over the bank statements. It's open banking. They're like, give me your account number and your sort code. Whoop, we're in for the next 6 months. And no one's reading the small print. They're like, oh yeah, they think they're just checking now. No, they hold on to that data for at least 6 months to 12 months. So yeah, we're not even thinking about it, but just things that you can do to take that first step.
Okay. I've been consuming a lot of Dave Ramsey content. I don't know if you know Dave Ramsey,
I do.
but he's very like no debt whatsoever. I forgot why I brought him up now. What was it you were saying?
We were talking about like debt, good debt, bad debt.
Yeah, so he's about the tapping.
Yes.
So one of the things he says is like back in the day when there were no like cards or we didn't really use them that much, you would give cash and then you would get change.
Yes.
And he was like that. I don't know what this like scientific wording is for it, but he was like that released something in your brain that acknowledged that there was like an exchange happening.
Absolutely.
But now when you tap or like you use whatever Apple Pay or whatever, your brain doesn't actually acknowledge that exchange.
That
so you don't even realize how much you're spending.
100%.
Yeah.
That I completely agree with. And that's why I say, if you think of like how we learn, even as children, as babies, we learn through consequence, whether that's a good consequence or a bad consequence. We learn by the feeling, the emotion, the oxytocin that's released when something happens. This is how I feel. There's no emotion when it comes to tapping.
Yeah.
You've just done it.
Yeah.
You haven't physically felt the impact on your bank account. You haven't physically felt the tangibility of having a £10 note, spending £6.20 and getting, you know, like £3.80 back.
Yeah, because then when you see that,
When
you're
you see
like,
the change,
oh,
now you could,
wait,
yeah,
what?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Even, you know, transitioning from, you know, coins into more notes and, you know, the introduction of like the £5 note and the £2 coin and all of those things have a knock-on effect. So I definitely agree with that. So whilst it may be convenient, it is then for people to take more of a responsibility. And as much as I'm saying that it's more convenient, the apps are also becoming more convenient. You know, like when you log into your internet banking, there's more pots. You can round up change that can go into your savings. And there's platforms like Emma that even if your internet banking isn't the greatest platform, you can use Emma and upload your bank accounts and work towards financial goals and investing. You just have to be proactive.
Yeah.
Like you just have to be proactive because otherwise you can, that's why I say, people will say money's not important. Okay, but you just went to Starbucks, got on the tube, bought some food and then got home and a couple of direct debits came out. And before you know it, you spent like whatever. You didn't even do anything.
Yeah.
Literally didn't do anything.
Yeah. How do you manage your money? Do you use like a spreadsheet?
I'm the same, spreadsheet.
Okay.
Love me and Excel are best friends. Love it. I've got literally every single, and this is the thing, some people will manage their money and think that they're on top of it until you have listed every single thing that is coming in and out of your bank account. You're not fully informed. Like literally everything, every single purchase. And that's why I say, like, when it comes to clients, it's understanding as well what's important to you. So then if you're saying, oh, I want to eat out and this, it's not about budgeting and limiting yourself. It's just knowing where your money goes.
Yeah,
That's
I agree.
literally what it is. Just being as informed as possible about your finances.
But I also do think that sometimes you have to be hard on yourself.
You
like,
do.
again, with me, I'm now at a point where I'm like, sometimes you have to say no to yourself. Because if
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I want this, or I want to eat at this restaurant, or me, restaurants is like the main, that is my downfall. But yeah, now I'm at a point where I'm like, this is my budget for the month for eating out.
Yeah.
This is my budget for like self-care or whatever, like going to a spa or whatever.
Yeah.
And if I don't have the money, then I'm
go.
not going.
Yeah.
Like there's no like, oh, let me just put it on a credit card and whatever. Because then where's the money coming from to pay it back?
Exactly. It's robbing Peter to pay Paul. Next month you still have to find that money, but next month you thought you was gonna have the same budget and the same pots of money to spend on. No, you can't. Something has to give. It's just whether it gives now or it gives next month, or if it's debt, it gives in a few months' time, but you've then got the interest on top of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're 100% right. With that one, definitely, I think just tracking where your money goes as much as you can.
Yeah.
As much as you can, and not feeling like you're limiting yourself. Give yourself play money.
Yeah.
So I always say to clients, have, you know, like 3 bank accounts for me is kind of like the best rule of thumb. So you have your account where your income gets paid into. And your direct debits, for example, can be paid from that account. You then have another account where your discretionary expenditure is paid from, or things that are variables. So, for example, food. No one's ever going to spend exactly £100 in Tesco's or Sainsbury's every single month, or things that can, you know, that can vary. Your travel and etc. And you transfer literally Automate it. You set up a standing order from your main account, from your income to that account. The hard work's been done for you. That means you just stay within those means. And then you've got your third account where you might, like say use a bank account like Monzo or Chase, where you can set up those pots.
The pots, yeah.
And where, can categorize your expenditure. And then if you need to, give yourself some fun money. Every month I've got £100 where, yep, I've got my budget for this, or yes, I've got my budget for that. And now I've got £100 that if you get that rush of just being able to say, this is just for me. I just want to buy this for me. I've had a bad day at work. I just want to buy the chocolate bar. I just want to buy the new nail varnish. I want to buy the new t-shirt. You've got that money to do so, but you've automated everything so nothing else is impacted. So it's kind of just making your finances as resilient as you can without feeling so limited and caged in. But again, you gotta be proactive and do the work. You gotta be willing to open up that bank account and write down every single expense and know where you're at.
Yeah. So we've talked a bit about debt and like if you're in a rut, but what about someone who's like in a good place, they've got savings and maybe they want to buy a house or buy their first investment? Like what advice would you have for them?
Long-term plan. So what is the long-term plan? A lot of people say I want to buy a home because I want some form of independence. And it's just understanding the different routes. What are you buying a property for? Is it because, you're not seeing the value in renting, and at the end of the day, it's more cost effective for you to pay a mortgage? Are you planning on starting a family? And so that's again why you're thinking in terms of space. Are you trying to create generational wealth or, get equity? It's just navigating and doing as much research on the different routes. Sometimes buying your first home to live in might not always be the best route. Sometimes it could be continuing to rent and then buying an investment property. But again, you've got to have the appetite for it. An investment property where? Is it going to be in London? Is it going to be up north? If it's up north, are you going to be in a position to maintain it and manage it? Again, what's the long-term goal? Understanding the difference between a residential mortgage and a buy-to-let mortgage. So have these conversations with people who do know 100% and think of the long-term plan. It's like when clients come to me and are like, I really want to buy a home. I want to create generational wealth.
Right.
I'm like, create generational wealth for who? Oh, my children. I want to leave them the house. Okay. That mortgage is 35 years. When are you leaving them the house? Because in order for you to leave them the house, you can't be in it no more. So what's the plan? Like, is this part of your retirement plan? And then it's like, oh yeah, that's a good point. I'm just thinking buy a property and I can leave it to them one day. It's like, no, you got to factor in every single step of the journey and why it's important to you. Again, it just boils down to those financial goals and why they're important to kind of know where you're at and where you're heading. So again, I think once you've asked yourself those important questions, then you can kind of weigh up what's beneficial, what's not beneficial, and then you just seek out the advice that kind of aligns with it. So if it's buying a property, I would actually say doing the research as soon as possible is always better. So for example, before I bought my first home, I was online doing the mortgage calculator with my current salary way before I was even in a position to even consider purchasing a property. Like just, okay, so if I have a 25k salary, this is what I can get. Okay, if I have a 30k salary, this is what I can get. So then I had a benchmark like, all right, if I want to buy a home, this is the salary that I need. You might be years off. It doesn't matter. I went and had a whole appointment with a mortgage broker. Sat down. Oh, where are you at? Etc. etc. Well, this is where I'm at, and saw how they calculated my income and etc. All of that information prepared me about 3-4 years in advance before I then actually bought my first property. So then that way, when I did come to buy it, look, it's going to be scary and it's going to be daunting. I think they say buying a home, getting married and getting divorced are like the 3 most stressful things that you go through in life. But at least just that way you're in the know as much as possible. If you know it's part of the plan and it's non-negotiable, go and get the information as quickly as you can.
Okay. Do you think, sorry, going back to Dave Ramsey again.
Yeah.
He's, and one of the things that I was watching, he was saying that there's kind of like a process before you become an investor. So he was like, the first thing you need is your emergency fund.
Absolutely.
So he was like, there's a basic emergency fund, which is $1,000 in his case.
Okay.
So he was like, $1,000 is a baseline that everyone should have $1,000 just sitting there as your emergency fund. Then it's pay off all your debt.
Yeah.
So any debt that you have needs to be gone. Yeah. And you need to put a plan in place to just like, as soon as you can, pay it all off.
Yeah.
Then you build on your emergency fund.
Like
So
your
it's like 3 to 6 months.
expenses. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you're in a position to think about investing.
Yeah.
Do you think that's like, that makes sense? Or
I think it's fair. I definitely think it's fair. The problem is that it doesn't take into consideration people's emotions. So when someone says pay off your debt as quickly as possible, there's two methods when it comes to paying off your debt, and they're known as the avalanche and the snowball method. So in terms of what Dave Ramsey is saying, the logic would be that the avalanche method would be paying off your debt as quickly as possible because you're focusing on the biggest debt first, paying that off, and then focusing then on all of the sort of smaller debts thereafter.
Right.
Logically, the quicker you've paid off the biggest debt is the quicker you've reduced your total of debt. Not everyone is that way inclined.
Yeah.
An avalanche method is based on how much your debt is costing you. So someone is going to opt for the avalanche method when they look at their credit cards and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm paying an additional £200 in interest every month. That is eating at my soul. I want to pay off that debt as quickly as possible. Someone else who is more in tune with reward and gratification, and maybe being overwhelmed with their finances, is going to be more inclined to do the snowball method, which is paying off a smallest debt first, getting that oxytocin, getting that release of thinking, it's gone, I've paid it off, ticked it off my list, now I can work on the next one. So that's why I say in the theory, the logic, yeah, brilliant, fantastic, but it just doesn't take into consideration the individual. And again, you know, if you're saving £1,000, yes, of course, that's what you've got available as an emergency. But then the person who is responsible, what's then the need for a credit card? So do you see what I mean? If you've got the £1,000, then what's the need for the credit card? But then at the same time, you need the credit card to be financially responsible, to build up your credit worthiness. And also at the same time, you want to be leveraging other people's money. Now, Dave Ramsey doesn't agree with that.
Correct.
But by leveraging other people's money, providing you're always in a surplus so your income can cover your debt at any given time, it just means that you've always then got cash in the bank available. So it swings and roundabouts. Yes, of course, then you're in a position to be investing. But again, then it takes into consideration good debt and bad debt. You know, at what point does that kind of that logic reinvent itself in the sense of, okay, now I've got debt, do I now go back to basics and now the plan is to pay off that debt again before I then incur new debt? Do you see what I mean? So it's a catch-22, and I think finance is personal.
Yeah.
And people can absorb and digest as much financial information as they want online. If it aligns with your ethics, your goals, your principles, run with it. No one is in a position to tell you that you are wrong. It's just got to align with how you operate as a person. So some people, for example, they only want 3 months worth of an emergency fund. Other people may want 6. Some people may be more comfortable with 12. No right or wrong.
Yeah.
Literally no right or wrong. Some people may feel more comfortable building that emergency fund whilst simultaneously paying off that debt.
That's what I was going to ask you then. Do you think debt should be paid off before you even think about savings, or it depends?
It depends, because if the debt's, again, I'm a numbers person. So for example, I'm going to look at how much is this debt costing me over a 12-month period, and how much do I want to save, and how long is it going to take me to save over a 12-month period? The problem I think people have is they save because they think it's a necessity, which I'm not saying that it's not, but if saving is important to you, how long? You know, if we're saving, what are we saving for? Because the reality is these days as well, cash in the bank it's depreciating. It's not always growing. So that's why I say it's important to understand financial goals. But yeah, it's understanding, if I want to save £1,000, what does that look like for me? What does that look like from my income? Is that £50 a month, £100 a month? And if it's £50 a month, it's going to take me this long. If it's £100 a month, it's going to take me that long. If this is how long it's going to take, then, you know, what does paying off all of my debt first, how does that impact me? But if I'm saving this much, how much does my debt cost me over the course of the year? I might as well then just pay off the debt first. So it's just, again, like I said, being really, really in tune with those numbers and knowing how much it's costing you. You know, you got to know your credit file, what your credit score is, and I say why. That's the point when I say your credit score is important, because if you understand how your credit report works, then you can take your credit score into consideration. But knowing your credit score, knowing your net worth, and knowing your interest rates on your savings, and knowing your interest rates on your credit cards, so your APRs, your car finance, your mortgage, etc. Those are the most important numbers that you can deal with. And if you know all of those, then you're kind of in a safe space, I would say.
Okay. And where did this like passion for money management come from?
I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure. I think it's just that whole feeling of learning from consequence. You know, one of my first jobs was working in Orange, so that was before EE.
Okay.
Worked in Orange, sales advisor. When you're an employee, you get a free phone.
Okay.
And then when you leave, you know, you get it like on a contract,
Yeah.
etc. And then when you leave, the contract comes to an end. Now, I left and had like a bill, I think, of like £25. It was just like standing charges or whatever. Left and thought, what's that? I've handed in my resignation. But the problem was I handed in my resignation, so it meant that the contract was closed immediately.
Oh.
And that bill had to be paid within 30 days. And I didn't pay it.
Okay.
And then my problem was as well is that like 18, 19, I was like, if I don't respond, they can't find me. Yes, they can. They're writing to your address. You know, they're writing to you every month saying, Ella, can you pay like this? And this £25 debt grew to, I think, £300. And then it's only until I got a little bit older and then I had a look at my credit report and I was like, wait, there's the debt that I've been hiding from for however long. Oh my gosh, I kind of need to face this now. So again, that was a consequence. But the whole reason why I even became aware of my credit report was because I knew that I wanted to buy a property at some point. And then I realized, oh, a credit report is important. So I better check this out and find out what mine is. And then it was like, oh yeah, that debt from when I was 18. Wow, this is on my credit report. And it was a default. And it was going to be on there for 6 years. Because, of course, the contract had come to an end and I haven't bothered to pay this debt. So things like that just fascinated me. How did I not know this? And what I thought was so sensible at the time, which was I'm opening the post, but if I just don't respond yet, they're going to leave me alone.
Yeah.
No. And then I think as well, buying a property at quite a young age. So I bought my first flat when I was 25.
That's amazing, though.
Yeah, I had a little bit of help from my parents. But like I said, from when I was like 21 and was working, I was like, okay, right, this is the salary I'm on. I was on Google using their mortgage calculator.
Wow.
So I was negotiating my salary aggressively, like, okay, this is the number that I need to get to, because if I get to this number, when I go on Rightmove tells me that I can then get a property valued at like 220,000. And then I was looking in areas that I wanted to live in. 220,000 gets me a 1-bedroom flat here. That's my bachelorette pad. Do you know what I mean? So that's how like linear in my thinking I was.
So you're quite a responsible 20-year-old.
You say that, but then I got my property, and I've said this on my social media, so I'll be totally transparent, but I got my property, and then within a few months into getting it, I was made redundant. Lost my job, had no money coming in, and I had a whole mortgage to pay, and was like, oh. I had equity in my property, and I took out a second charge loan. And again, took out a second charge loan in my 20s thinking, oh, okay, brilliant. The reality is I grew my mortgage and I took out a loan thinking, right, I'm going to consolidate some of the debts that I've got. I'm going to support myself for a period of time, because it was quite a dark time, I think, going through that redundancy. So it's like, I need to just take a step back from work, support myself, and then I can go back into the workplace with a sort of fresh mind. Where's the money? Where's the money? Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I paid off a few debts that I had at the time, like a credit card and etc. But I can't tell you anything tangible that I did with that money. Now that I'm older, money comes and goes. And now I'm in a mindset and a mind frame where it's like, I can earn that money back. And I'm comfortable with knowing that as much as I spend money, I can earn it back. But that's just because of my earning potential and where I'm at with money now. But at that time, it was like, Ella, you've just spent all of this money and I've got nothing to show for it. Yeah, I've still got a roof over my head, but where is the money? And again, that's just learning through consequence. At the time, a second charge loan, oh, the mortgage increased by like £49 or something. This just made sense.
Yeah.
I had convinced myself so much at how this made sense. but yeah, bottom line is there were still lessons that I had to learn. So now it's just a case of, now calculator.
Yeah.
What's the long-term plan? If this is the long-term plan, what's the long-term impact? If this is the long-term impact, how is this really serving you and your future? And I think, of course, now, because I've got a son as well, you know, how does that impact him and his future? So there's loads of things that you have to factor in when it comes to making, like, serious financial decisions. So I think that's where the passion came from, was just at every time I thought I was informed, I could have been more informed. And then that's when it was like, oh, okay, there's always something to, like, even now I'm still learning. Even now and I think as well, with the state of the economy, there's always a new scheme, there's always a new ISA, there's always a new this and new that. So you're always learning, but I think it's just recognizing that if you remain in that space of willing to learn, then it's okay. So I think that's maybe where the passion came from. I enjoy it as well.
Yeah.
I mean, some days I'm like, why don't you just go back to like doing marketing and branding and fashion and stuff like that, which was so fun. And because numbers can be difficult.
I was gonna say, like, numbers give me a headache.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I like numbers. I like seeing the outcome of something. I like seeing the journey. I like seeing the reward. Property's always been a passion of mine as well. Like, I love it. So yeah, I think that's where it came from.
So apart from that flat that you bought, do you have other properties, like rental properties?
No, so I'm in the stage of obtaining a rental property at the moment. So I had my first flat, which I then sold. My whole thing was, because after getting my first flat, like I said, a few years later, I then had my son. So then it was all like tunnel vision, building a life for him. So I actually, untraditionally, should you say, I actually sold that property, held on to the money and rented for 6 months, put my head down, because I was then self-employed by that time as well, put my head down, earned as much income as I could, saved as much as I could, and then went for the family home that I'm now raising my son in now. Because for me, my long-term journey was, I wanted to have stability.
Yeah.
I wasn't in a space to invest. And in hindsight, if I think about it, I'm sure any property investor or any property mogul, if they looked at the figures, were like, why didn't you remortgage and take out the equity and go and buy? That's why I say you have to do what you have the headspace and the capacity to do. Because as much as looking at the numbers on paper, that might have been a brilliant plan, it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
It wasn't going to work. There was only enough equity for me to certainly buy again out of London. What the hell was I going to do traveling up to wherever, finding builders, finding, management companies?
It's so much work.
It's so much work. It looks glamorous on Instagram, and I watch Grand Designs on Channel 4, and they're building amazing properties with like 300,000 in the middle of nowhere. So that's the reality. You have to know what you have the capacity to do. So again, in hindsight, but it's just now I'm of a thinking that I'm like, I run my own business. This is my earning potential. This is my capacity for earning money and doing what I want with the money that I have. So this is now when I can do X, Y, and Z. You've got to be in the right headspace. You've got to be in the right frame of mind, and you've got to have the physical capacity to be able to do.
What about income streams as well? Because I know a lot of people are always like, oh, we need multiple income streams. But for someone who like works a 9 to 5, like, how do they begin to even think about additional income streams?
A lot of people, when they think of multiple income streams, think outside of their current income. So what I mean is, let's just say you're a project manager. You're earning whatever you're earning, and you're thinking, I want to earn some more money. Oh, I'll look into Amazon FBA.
Yeah.
I'll look into rent to rent or drop shipping or etc.
There's so many things.
There's so many things. But my thing is, no, you're a project manager. You trade your time and someone pays you 30, 40, 50, 60K for you to be a project manager. Can you assist other corporate companies as a project manager? Can you do a workshop once a month? Can you do public speaking on project management? Can you go online and monetize your journey online? So sometimes there can be multiple streams of income within your one stream of income. And that's why I would say to always look to first.
Yeah.
Can you develop the 7 streams of income from your current occupation? If you can, then fantastic. The second thing that I then say when it comes to multiple streams of income is group economics. If you got 2,000 and your friend's got 2,000 and another friend's got 2,000, and they are individuals that it doesn't even necessarily have to matter about the friendship, but they're individuals that you respect, and you respect from a financial perspective or a work ethic. Group economics, because you don't have 10 but you have 2, but 5 of you then have 10. So whatever that opportunity or business may be, don't snooze on group economics between you, because slow and steady wins the race. But if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, you guys got to go together. So sometimes it's not always as complicated as I do, but definitely believe in multiple streams of income, 100%. And I think, like I said before, we're in a time now where making money is easier theoretically than it ever was before. If you think of our parents, they stayed in the same job for years and years and years. We're chopping and changing after about 18 months to 2 years. You know, we've got more self-employed individuals than ever before. But just don't overcomplicate it. Think of your current skill sets. How can you monetize your skill sets? Because you're going to make more money monetizing your current skill sets than suddenly trying to learn something brand new and implement that and work on that. So yeah, that's where I say to start first.
Yeah. What about people that have been in a job for a while and maybe are scared to like ask for a pay rise? Because I know you're like an advocate for like getting your pay rise. Yeah. How do you start with that? Because I've always been really like uncomfortable with talking with managers about that.
It is uncomfortable. I think there is nothing wrong with teasing with an email first. But I think what you always want to do, again, is perspective. You are trading your time to implement your expertise. How much do you value your expertise? And so when you yourself can see that value, I think it's much easier for you to then turn around to an employer. I mean, I'm saying that, but it's much easier for you to then say, okay, right, hold on. Because then it becomes visceral, do you know what I mean? Then you feel it in your gut, like, hold on, I'm earning this. But the reality is I'm doing this, and this. And if you can equate that as well, financially, you know, like people who are working within sales, I'm generating X number of profits for the business. If you're working in administration, what's the value of me looking after this paperwork to allow the business to do this? And then you just want to put that forward, I think, to your manager, your line manager, HR, whoever it is. But I think the quicker you get perspective on that is the easier you then get that gut feeling to be like, no, this is what I deserve. This is what I want to go for. The reality is as well, is there's always going to be, to some extent, not with all jobs, not with all industries, but the reality is there are going to be other roles elsewhere that are going to be willing to pay that amount. So if you're willing to change at the end of the day. It's just kind of how important it is for you. I'm probably not the best person when it comes to, you know, navigating the specific conversation, because I'm now self-employed, and I remember working, and I remember there was a time when I navigated a pay rise. I think it was like some obscure number, like 1.75%. And the manager like justified it in like the most craziest way. Like, this is where, and I was just like, what is this? But in fairness, I hadn't done, like I said, that equation to be able to say like, look, this is what I'm doing, this is what I think I'm worth, etc., etc. So of course I just took it. Was it uncomfortable? Once they then offered it, I was now about to be like, no, I deserve more. It was just like, oh, okay, this doesn't make sense. I'll be back in 6 months. That was kind of my logic, you know. So like I said, I'm maybe not the best person when it comes to navigating the actual conversation, but I think doing your research, knowing what your role pays, like I said, knowing what your role is valued at within the company, and then negotiating from there, I would say.
Okay. Are there any like resources, books, or anything that you would say everyone should read this book when it comes to money?
That's a hard one because my books, I would say, are quite varied. I got a friend of mine, Emmanuel Suko. He's a financial advisor, almost like the TV's financial advisor. He's got a book out.
Okay.
Get Your Money Right. Brilliant book when it comes to breaking down financial terminologies, why they're important. I'm trying to think of a few others. A lot of people online who are creating financial content are now transitioning and developing their own books. So chances are, if there's someone that you like, chances are that they will potentially have a book out. I just contributed on a chapter with two friends of mine, Byron and Bianca, and contributed a chapter on their book about finances and how to look after your money. So chances are there's someone out there, and if you already like how they're kind of creating content or talking or sharing information, chances are you're going to like the book, which means you're going to receive the information much better.
Yeah.
Traditionally, Think and Grow Rich.
Yeah.
Trying to think of a few others.
What's your opinion on Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay.
I like Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Okay.
I like the story. I like the message. I like the sentiment. There's always going to be some things within there where I'm a bit like... But again, it's because it comes from a personal perspective. But you have to, like I said, you have to know yourself to be able to decide what you're going to digest, what you're going to take on, and what you don't. So that's like, for example, with Dave Ramsey, some things on paper sound fantastic, but for me personally, it lacks the reality of life.
Yeah.
And it definitely reacts to the reality of me being a mother. So for Dave Ramsey doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, your financial advice is rigid.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean? And the reality is, for me, life as a mother isn't.
Yeah, of course.
So there's only so many things that I can adopt, but it's knowing what you can adopt and what you can't.
Yeah, I think you can get things from different people.
Exactly.
Because I think one of the things he says is like, if you have debt, you shouldn't step foot in a restaurant unless you're working there. And it's like, but then I'm just depressed because it's like, I'm just on this hamster wheel of like paying it off.
Do you know what I mean? So now you want me to get up, go to work, come home and hide from life until I've got X amount in the bank. And then now I'm going to reward myself by now being allowed to step foot in the restaurant because I don't have... Come on.
And that could take years, some of the debt that I've seen people that have paid off debt. Yeah. Like 80k, 100k.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just one more. How can people connect with you?
So on social media, Ella Insures, ELLAENSURES, on all platforms. Instagram specifically, I'm always welcome for people to drop me a DM, ask me a question, book a free discovery call. Otherwise, website ellainsures.co.uk. And again, my email's on there as well. Drop me an email.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate
you.
If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget, like, comment, share, all the things. We appreciate you listening and see you next time. Bye.